It was a sunny July morning in the French Alps when the other 7 members of my team and I set off on the second day of our expedition. It was a 2-day training climb, meant to acclimatize our bodies to the altitude. Like the French Alps, our team was international in its makeup. I was the leader and the only American. The guy who'd come up with the idea for this adventure was a Frenchman named Paul. Our team included another Frenchman and an Italian, as well as a Czech, a Greek, a German, a Brit, and a Slovenian, all 8 of us mountaineers. We'd come to the French Alps not for the skiing or hot chocolate, but for one reason and one reason only: to climb Mont Blanc. The highest peak in the Alps has an elevation of 15,766 feet. Mountain climbers don't typically rank Mont Blanc among the hardest mountains to climb, but it's tricky for 2 reasons: weather and conditions. This is no gentle uphill ramble. This is glacier climbing. As the hike began, I thought about my family. My wife Jess and my son Carter, who were eagerly following the updates of our trek. Jess and Carter were 2 of the reasons why I returned to mountain climbing. Carter was just becoming old enough to understand that Dad climbs mountains. But I had another reason. There's one other important detail about this crew of international mountaineers. This time, I wasn't the only person with hemophilia. This time, almost all of us were. Remember Paul? His 2 young sons have hemophilia. He saw the documentary about me, Bombardier Blood, so he reached out. At the time, I was still the executive director of Save One Life. But there is something about Paul's email that struck a chord with me. He didn't just want to inspire his son. He wanted to demonstrate how important it is to have a bleeding disorder and still live an active lifestyle. And that climbing mountains isn't just for one person with hemophilia, but for everyone. This is a complete shift in our mindset as a community. When I was a kid, parents of children with bleeding disorders were told to keep their kids away from dangerous activities like outdoor sports. So by summiting Mont Blanc, Paul, the others, and I would be setting an example for a new generation of kids with bleeding disorders. Our climb would raise money too, but it was also important for me, personally. Now I was a father as well as a husband. My son was starting to be old enough to know what his dad does. I too want to show my son that having a bleeding disorder does not prevent you from having an active lifestyle. So of course, I was all in. But now that we were here, there was so much pressure. I felt like I had to be something that I didn't feel anymore. I had to be skilled and amazing climber because that's what other people had seen. But I hadn't been that in 6 years. It felt like a lifetime ago. I felt like a complete fraud. I felt ashamed, but I had to put on this face, kind of mask, to meet everyone's expectations. I was hoping that once we got out onto the snow, something would change. That the joy I felt being in those places would return. That my drive to endure discomfort would reinvigorate me. And my joy and my drive did come back on the first day. At least a glimpse of them. Being on the mountains, seeing incredible views and being with the team. I remembered other climbs I'd been on and how powerful these spaces can be. But the second day changed all of that. The morning started out great. We crossed glaciers, we walked on rope teams and traversed a narrow ridge. But after lunch, the trouble started. We were climbing the steepest ridge yet, full of significant rock formations that were perched on the edge of a cliff. This was nothing harder than what I've done before, but something hit differently. I was full of nerves. I was scared. Something that I haven't felt that strongly before in the mountains. I wanted off. I tried to keep going. Step, step, breath. Step, step, breath. We had to be halfway across the ridge when we had to make a move over an exposed area. Halfway across. I did something I've done hundreds of times before with no trouble. I looked down. I could barely see the bottom of the cliff, thousands of feet below me. And I could only think one thing. What the F am I doing here? My son's face popped into my mind. I could hear his laugh, feel his hug. The others would have to go on without me. All I wanted in that moment was to be off the mountain and with him. I wanted to hug my son. My name is Chris Bombardier, and I'm a mountaineer with hemophilia. From 2011 to 2018, I successfully climbed 7 summits, the tallest mountain on each of the 7 continents. Since then, I've become the executive director of Save One Life. As a role model and a leader in the global hemophilia community, I've learned a lot since I climbed the 7 summits. It caused me to rethink my ideas about leadership and success, and to re-examine myself in the process. This is the final summit season 4, Reevaluating Success.
This next segment is brought to you by Genentech. There's a new short film out that's dedicated to moms who care for their sons with hemophilia A. It's an honest and visually striking journey about a mother going through the emotional whirlwind of raising a son with hemophilia A. This story is inspired by thousands of real moms and serves as a thank you for all that they do to make the hemophilia A caregiver community a place of love and resilience. Visit www.hemashort.com to watch the short film.
This week, my guest and I discussed my return to mountain climbing and my decision to walk away from Mont Blanc. We'll all give our final thoughts on success, what it means, and how to redefine it. Spoiler, I did not finish the Mont Blanc climb. I was able to push through the training climb. I was still able to lead my team on the first leg of our summit push. But in the end, I walked away. I was the leader of the climb, the experienced climber. I'd even climbed Everest. To say this was a disappointment would be an understatement. Like you heard last week, I'd spent 5 years struggling in a leadership role at Save One Life. I was still dealing with the resulting mental health problems. Then in January, while I was traveling in Pakistan, our home in Massachusetts caught fire. Jess, myself, and our young son Carter had to pick up the pieces and rearrange our lives. We were displaced for 5 months. Obviously, this was extremely stressful. It's also not an ideal way to train for a grueling mountain climb like we were attempting. I'm now 39. I'd climbed the last of the 7 summits when I was 32. Mountain climbing is tricky that way. I had 39 years of life experience, but also 39 years of wear and tear on my body. And now I had a young son. I still think my decision to walk away from the Mont Blanc climb was the right decision, but it's also important to acknowledge what happened. I had a panic attack during a high-stress situation, climbing Mont Blanc, just after losing my home, and just after spending 5 years in a stressful job. Emotions are complicated, and mine certainly are. That's why it can be so difficult to process them. I talked about this with psychologist Dr. Ryan Warner.
So when I talk about mental wellness, right, we have to look at it in a multifaceted way. So there's interpersonal mental wellness, right, within myself. Maybe my past upbringing, my past trauma that I've experienced, the various personality traits I hold, et cetera. Then we have interpersonal factors that impact mental health. So conflict within the workplace, team dynamic issues, toxic leadership. And then we have systemic barriers. So policies, practices, procedures that then go against the ability to support mental well-being. Right. So I've seen not only just systemic barriers within this particular setting, but also the interpersonal and intrapersonal barriers as well.
So when you noticed people that were struggling with their mental well-being, how did that generally present with folks, and how were you able to identify it fairly quickly?
Well, some individuals, they feel comfortable enough going to the mental health clinic, right? But we know a lot of individuals who experience mental health challenges do not seek professional support. So it would show up in very subtle ways. Maybe it would be someone got pulled over for a DUI, or they experienced maybe some disciplinary issues within their workplace, right? Or they had difficulty just getting to work on time, right? So it would show up in these more subtle ways. So, due to the mental health stigma, only a small amount of individuals actually, unfortunately, seek out the care that they actually need that would actually be helpful for them. So me going out into the units, doing different briefings and speaking and training and facilitation, I was able to connect with these individuals on a more personal level, and in turn, built that trust, built that rapport, and individuals would then come up to me, maybe ask for some advice or some support. That's what I do now, like in the work that I do in my consulting company, right? I recognize that therapy is one way that we can help promote positive well-being, but also being able to provide education, being able to provide resources, right? I think you found me on Psychology Today. I'm an expert contributor for that platform, which reaches 1 million people read Psychology Today action per day. And being able to write different articles and being able to engage in different speaking engagements and training, facilitation, creating curriculums, those are other ways as well that maybe provide these practical tools that people can implement both in their personal life and professional life.
It's really interesting. I think I felt that stigma a long time ago about seeking out help for mental wellness. But I also think I had a lot of struggle just even identifying that was what I was going through, and that's what I was experiencing was maybe anxiety and depression. Is that something that you also recognize, that people don't even know that that's what's going on?
Yes, because oftentimes we just normalize, those emotions and those feelings, right? Like maybe we're just used to waking up and our body's just aching, right? And we're maybe attributing that to, slept in the wrong position, but maybe it's the stress is built up for such a long amount of time. Now you experience physiological symptoms, okay? And it shows up physically, like within your body. So yeah, I think sometimes we just normalize that because that's just, our day to day. But oftentimes we don't recognize that if we keep avoiding those symptoms, all they do is come back in different ways.
Whether you're a mountain climber like me, or whether you're in any occupation that gives you stress, it can be so easy for even more stressors in life to come together and make you just too stressed. And that's okay. It's important to recognize this dynamic. Throughout season 4, I've talked with Joanna Bakiro about resilience. Like me, Joanna has a bleeding disorder. And like anyone, Joanna has moments when she finds it difficult to find her resilience. So I asked her about it.
What is something that people don't know about resilience that they might find surprising? I assume there's people out there that think they're not resilient or don't feel resilient. What do you have to say with them? Like, what's your advice?
So I would say 2 things. One is, I think that people believe there's a misconception that resilience is about being invincible, and it's not true. Resilience is more about adapting to challenges and finding strengths and finding strategies to cope with adversity and living through it. So when you think about, you don't become invincible, not at all. What you do is you're able to adapt to the challenges that you will encounter, and you will find ways in which how you can deal with it. So that's one. And then the other thing is, some people believe that resilience is a personal trait, like you're born resilient or you're not born resilient. And that's not true either. Resilience, as I said before, is a learned skill. And like any other skill, resilience can be developed. And, I talk about like 4 steps that for me have worked, but you will develop it through practice. And the more you practice, the more you develop it. And it's like a muscle, right? The more you exercise it, the more developed it becomes, and then you use it more. And you're never too old or too late to develop resilience. You can always develop resilience. You just need to be open to doing it and trying it.
You can have plenty of resilience and still have moments where you need to just walk away. I asked my friend Patrick James Lynch how he finds the motivation to keep going, and what he said surprised me.
So you've been doing Believe and this storytelling, advocacy, content creation, helping really empower the hemophilia community for over a decade now. What has kept you motivated for 10 years to keep pushing forward and inspiring you to try new things and grow?
Yeah, it's interesting because the goal in the beginning was the one project. I didn't have a vision for starting a company or building a career. It was one project to address what I learned from my brother's death. And that is, we need to engage younger people in more entertaining ways if we expect them to learn about their healthcare. And when that was proving to be successful, so to speak, it was well executed, made a good impact, seems to be successful. It raises a question of what's next?
I think for me, I felt after I did the climbs, people always ask what's next. And a bit of me is well, wasn't that good? Yeah, I don't know if I really want to do anything next. Do you get that sense too in your space of I feel pretty satisfied with what I've done and what else can I do, or just tired sometimes?
Yeah, of course. It's kind of a funny thing at a film screening. You work 4 or 5 years to get a film out, and the third question, the Q&A is what else are you working on? I just worked on this for a really long time. Is this not good enough? It's that natural human curiosity and wonder. It's the same, the what's next question. But yeah, I actually got comfortable in my mid-30s with the idea of it's okay if I don't have anything to say. I don't have to have a point of view. I don't have to feel like I have to have a point of view. I have to be churning out scripts, or if I go through a big period where I'm actually producing stuff, that might be fine. And that's healthy. And obviously I'm still doing quite a lot, and I still have a lot that I believe in. But even just giving myself the mental permission to say, hey, if you don't want to take on another big project, you don't have to. You might be fine with it. And that's paradigm shift from where I was when I was running around learning about how to make Stop the Bleeding happen, or even in the first number of years of Believe and leaning into, okay, we're a company, this is real. We got to keep shaping up. I'm now at a point where, to be too morbid, but honestly, if that metaphorical bus took me out tomorrow, I created a lot of great programs and a lot of excellent story-driven pieces. I got to bring together a lot of people through it. work with people I really love, employ people that I really love. I got to marry a woman I really love and have a great kid. I'm really satisfied, to be quite honest. And there's more that I would like to do and see and accomplish and all of that. But so far, macro, so good.
Did I want to finish the Mont Blanc climb? Sure. But one of the fundamental rules of mountain climbing is that you respect the mountain. If you know you're not capable of finishing a climb, the safe thing and the right thing to do is not to be a liability to yourself and your teammates. This gets at the heart of mountain climbing. When Patrick mentioned the loss of his brother, who also had hemophilia, it was not hard to think about the people that I and the mountain climbing community have also lost. Everyone who gets into mountain climbing faces the possibility of death at some point. But for me, this wasn't just an abstract possibility. Also in 2024, shortly after our Mont Blanc climb, the mountain climbing community lost a great one when Michael Gardner fell to his death while attempting to summit the Janu North Face in Nepal. Mike guided me and our team on Denali. I will never forget his enthusiasm for being in the mountains and his openness for teaching everything he knew. He was only in his early 20s at that point, but he seemed like he had everything figured out. Mike was one of the most experienced climbers in the world, and his death is both a tremendous loss as well as a stark reminder that any mountain climb can go wrong. And sometimes, as hard as it might be to accept it, the right move might be to walk away. All this season of our podcast, we've been talking about what it means to redefine success. And so, before we go, I thought I'd let my guests give their definition of success. This isn't to say that these definitions have to be your definitions, or your only definitions. After all, our definition of success doesn't have to be permanent. First up, Patrick James Lynch.
If I don't filter myself, the first word that comes up for me is peace. And I think that's a very personal response, but I think it's professionally true as well. To me, success is peace. And I guess peace comes with a job well done, making the kind of impact that we want to make, making sure we've delivered to our clients and partners the way we want, making sure that I took care of myself along the way. I more and more, and maybe it has to do with age too, I want peace. I'm not seeking excitement. I'm not seeking validation. Success, more financial security is great, but ultimately I want peace. That's what I want.
Next, Joanna Bakiro.
So to me, success is being able to feel the combination of both happiness and peace, and that will make you feel that fulfillment. And so far, I'm proud of the life that I've built. I'm proud both personally and professionally. And I'm especially proud of being able to positively impact the life of others by sharing my life and sharing my experiences. I never thought that, as I was saying before, I was going through the motions of recovering one bleed after another, but I never thought that this could actually inspire others to live life in a different way. So I think that for my future, other than set goals that I have professionally or doing other things personally, I think it's more making sure that I'm able to continue to give back. The reason that I stand for where I stand today is because I've been granted the grace of many doctors, nurses, my family that have helped me be where I am today. And so my responsibility now is to give back and make sure that I can give to others as much as I received.
Next, Amy Board.
I really think success is just hard work. It's just hard work. It's hard work in your own self, in your job, in creating the boundaries between work and play, showing up, caring for people, and just really smart, hard work. And what happens with the work that we do is out of our control. I don't know. It's just out of our control. I have no idea if our company will be successful. I have no idea if this book that I'm writing will be successful. But I have worked so hard at it. I've worked so hard at myself, so I can show up better for people. For you, my good friend, and for my husband, and for my mother, and for my father, and for my brother, and for my staff. And that feels really good to me. And I have surrounded myself with people that I can now point to my safe people and how wonderful. And I have so many people in my life, but I have a circle of safe people. And that's successful to me. And I work hard to keep those relationships buoyant. And I have god babies, my godchildren that, mean the world to me. And so hard work, it's all you can do. Hard work, play hard, work hard.
And I love that you tied in Taylor Swift into our podcast.
It's a Taylor Swift answer.
And finally, Dr. Ryan Warner.
The way I look at success is being able to live a life with purpose. Because if you're able to live a life with purpose, then you're not just waking up each and every day going through the motions. Everything you do, every action that you engage in is intentional and deliberate that helps drive you further to that purpose that you identify. That purpose may change. That purpose obviously is different for everybody. But I think that if you're able to continue to strive towards fulfilling that purpose, then you are going to reach that success.
All of those are good definitions. As for me, I've learned to define success not by external expectations or by my preconceived notions of who I am. Instead, success has to be defined internally by knowing who I am and what's best for me. There was a time when I thought I was going to be a Major League Baseball player. Reality soon told me that wasn't going to work. As I looked for new directions in life, I achieved a seemingly impossible goal in climbing the 7 summits. But this was just part of an overall goal, to make the world a better place for people with hemophilia, and hopefully for all of us. Whether you have a bleeding disorder or not, I hope you've been inspired by my journey. As for me, I'm on to my next chapter. I'm still not exactly sure what that will look like, but I have lots of great people helping me find my way. And now I know I have plenty of tools to keep me going.
The Final Summit is hosted by Chris Bombardier, written by Jim Rowley, edited by Greg Bernhard, produced by Keith Corderluck, and graphic support from Tony Mendoza. The Final Summit is produced by Bloodstream Media. For more information or to start a podcast of your own, visit bloodstreammedia.com.